Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. MashaAllah. Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. So the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he told us that anytime people get together in one of the houses of Allah and they intend to read and study and learn the revelation, then the angels will descend upon them and they will bring blessings and the peace and tranquility will envelop them. And then He will call them out in the heavens, the names of those seeking the knowledge and seeking spirituality. I'm going to work with you on this because we have some weird thing where I can't see on my screen here, but you can see it here. So inshallah we'll kind of both be watching this, right? So today we're talking about dealing with this charge. I think it's no secret that pretty much many people, Muslim and non-Muslim, would say freedom and human rights and human dignity are not celebrated practices in the Muslim world, right? Would you agree to that? Many people say that. So if we study the Quran and we look into the fundamentals and the objectives of the religion, we will see that if that is the case, which I'm not putting a blanket judgment or claim against any country or the whole Muslim world, but even if it was that there's a large presence of the lack of respect for human dignity, the lack of giving a reasonable human rights and freedom to the people, then that's a lack of knowledge that people have of the religion is the problem. And that's the pretty much the crux of the issue that we're trying to convince people to understand nowadays, and that is differentiating between Muslim and Islam. No matter how long the beard is, no matter how black the abaya is, all of that is not the issue. Islam, the pure truth of the relationship between the Creator and creation. That's the categorical meaning of it. In that all atoms in the universe, everything that was created, has been created by the one and only who has full authority, ownership, and control over all of it. So He has inspired all of creation to have a specific purpose and a specific design. Okay? So that's where the rights come from. Okay? So Islam is pure. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, he received a full, detailed, complete, final message that has been miraculously, by divine support, preserved. And that's not just a claim we make of faith. That's something that's anthropologically, archaeologically, historically proven. So that's a big blessing that we have as Muslims. So when we talk about human dignity, the question is human dignity. So there is a mentality that I've experienced among some Muslims that I only respect like serious Muslims. If they're Muslim and they don't practice, there's something wrong with them. No, stay away from those. Or if they're a non-Muslim, or God forbid a sinning non-Muslim, they're like worse than the sinning Muslim. And so you see the way they treat them and the way they look at them is like they're not worth dignity. The Quran tells us, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. This verse right here. We have surely honored the children of Adam. The first thing we see in this verse is the we. The scholars have addressed why God uses I, He, and we when referring to Himself in the Quran. It is Him that's talking. So whenever He says He, which is most common, these are general descriptions that you need to know who is God. What descriptions does He have? What is His reality in general? His general reality. I is whenever there is an intimate connection between Him and His servants. You will see very rarely, usually between Him and a prophet, or between Him and the servant who's done major problems. He is letting you know He's close to you and He's with you. So He says, I, directly talking to you. But then Allah, often in the Quran, He refers to Himself as we. In English, we call this linguistic mechanism the royal we, or the majestic plural. It does not mean God and angels, or Prophet Muhammad and God and angels. That is an incorrect understanding. It means God, meaning He is the absolute truth, the one and only King of all kings. And when He talks, He can talk on behalf of everything that exists because He created it, made it, and controls it. Right? So He says we. So the second thing is honored the children of Adam. Meaning what? Takreem is the word used. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا. Karam, it means to give generously, or it means to have nobility or respect or dignity. Karama, in Arabic, if you want to say human dignity, you say karamatul insan. Right? That's how you say it. So, what this means is all human beings deserve respect in their humanity. We should respect the dignity of all people, Muslim, non-Muslim, the worst of the sinners. They as humans deserve respect because He has called for that. Now, actions that people make, we dislike. Convictions that people have that go against the nature of their soul and the truth of prophethood, we dislike. Right? As He dislikes them. But the people, we have all of the respect for their human dignity. So, He made us, وَصَوَّرَكُمْ فَأَحْسَنَ صُوَرَكُمْ. He says in the Quran, He gave you your shape and He gave you the best of shapes. وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. The human being is the best way to be formed. To carry this responsibility, which is the next part. Can you imagine that God would create a giraffe, and giraffes are supposed to rule the earth? How's he ever start? How's he going to type? How's he going to get into his car? What kind of car would that look like? You see what I'm saying? It just doesn't make any sense. It is the human form that is the best to carry the responsibility of authority. And that's why He says, أَنْشَأَكُم مِّنَ الْأَرْضِ وَاسْتَعْمَرَكُم فِيهَا. The next verse here. He created you from the earth, and He has given you authority on the earth. إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. I have made a viceroy on this earth. He's telling the angels in 2:30. I am making a viceroy on there. What is a viceroy? A viceroy is one that is deputized as the authority on behalf of one that has authority that's detached. So this authority is not directly interacting. So this viceroy is going to be the one responsible for taking care of the affairs. Humanity, He's saying this. He didn't say the Muslims. So the idea of caliphate, as it's only mentioned in the Quran, is for all of humanity. We're all responsible, every last one of us. Meaning what? We should work with others, even if we disagree with them on conviction of creed or purpose of worship. We should make sure that we are not separating ourselves from other human beings in the purpose of taking care of the earth in both the meaning of establishing justice and goodness, as well as protecting the earth. Like right now, the capitalist system is destroying the planet. It's getting worse and worse and worse. There are reasonable scientific calculations coming from very respected sources. Within 100 years, the earth will be very uninhabitable to a large degree. We're going to have to figure out new systems of protection from sun and from heat and from different crazy weather things. It's getting bad. We're all responsible collectively. Now, when the Quran was when He says, وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ مِنْكُمْ لَيَسْتَخْلِفَنَّهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ كَمَا اسْتَخْلَفَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ. This is talking about what God will do with a collective society that are following the prophetic model after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He will give them the respect as a collective and give them some authority in the world that will be respected. Because istikhlaf is respected. Right now we're not respected because we are not doing what He said we would be doing in order to get that divine blessing. And you can fight all the battles you want. That's not going to solve the problem of faith and action and respect for the Quranic priorities and principles that we have. So the Quran is saying, "Oh humanity, I have created you all from male and female and made you into very different people. For which reason? Why? When he says, لِتَعَارَفُوا, I made you into شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِل. Shu'ub are whole nation states. That's a sha'b. Then you have qabila, is like a family, we call it in modern terms. Tribe, you know. It's the families. And then the nation states, all those are very different. They have very different backgrounds, languages, colors, as we'll see, you know. And they're all there. Why did he make it like that? لِتَعَارَفُوا. So that you come to get to know each other. What is this meaning? This is meaning human beings should see a sense of curiosity in respect to learning from other people. But you know, you have heard the feeling from many people. I mean, I've been sitting there. Let's be honest with ourselves. Okay? I've been sitting in a gathering of Syrian people, and they're like, oh, those Egyptians, they're all like this. I'll be sitting with some Indian brother, and he'll be like, yeah, all those Pakistani people, you know. I'm like, brother, you guys are the same people. What are you talking about? The British told you you're different, now you should be against each other. Because they decided that for you. Why are you buying into this nonsense? We're all human beings. No Muslim should ever talk like that or think like that. Someone says, oh, the Americans. What about the Americans? Avoid them. What's going to happen? They're all like kryptonite or something for us or some strange thing. No. Get to know them, learn from them, appreciate them, respect their dignity. If you differ with them, do so in a kind, respectful way. Not in a harsh, rude way, not in a judgmental, mean way. So, that's what he said. And he said, indeed, the best among you is those who have piety. Taqwa. If you look at piety in the English dictionary, the word literally means to be devoted to God and live in obedience to Him. Right? This is what we call taqwa in Arabic. So, what did the Prophet, when asked about taqwa? He said, At-taqwa ha-huna. Taqwa is in this place. And then where did he put his finger? Who knows what's in the heart? Wallahu alimun bidhat as-sudur. So whose business is it to say who has taqwa? But you met religious Muslims going around like they own the truth. I'm on the haqq. My way, my group, my sheikh. Hold up, brother. We're all just human beings with shortcomings, trying to seek some knowledge, trying to become better, taking account of ourselves. We all have things to learn from each other. There is blessings in getting to know people, because people are dignified and have been blessed with divine compassion and mercy. Right? That's the attitude of the believer. Human dignity. From his signs in creation, اختلاف ألسنتكم وألوانكم, is that you have different languages and skin colors, skin tones. That's from his signs. That's divine signs, what that is. So, learn from each other. See the beauty in the different traditions. So the Prophet ﷺ is sitting with his companions, and they're all talking, and then a funeral goes by. The Prophet ﷺ stands up. So they said, Ya Rasulullah, don't you know that is a Jewish funeral? He said, it is a human funeral. Isn't it a human being that has died? He's teaching them. It's not about, we're Muslims, we're the God holy chosen ones. He's with us, he doesn't love anybody else. He hasn't done anything for anybody else. He's not with anyone else. No, what it is human beings should be respected in general. So, if somebody were to ask you, or somebody were to tell you that they are thinking that there's something wrong with going to a non-Muslim funeral, you have the proof here from Sahih Muslim. There is a big difference in going to a funeral and actually saying amen to prayers that are polytheistic in nature, versus showing them the respect and the dignity that they deserve, which is what we're seeing in these scriptural references, right? So that would be highly recommended, because the Prophet made a point and stood against a very common zealous attitude amongst his companions. If you study the seerah, you will find many religious Muslims today are still stuck when some of the Sahaba were just learning, and some of the attitudes they had about what it means to be religious. Religiosity. The religion. I'm with the religion. I'm on the truth. And if you look at the Prophet, so many times he's correcting them and helping them to chill out and relax and not be so quick to judge or have an attitude with people. So when the Prophet ﷺ, he wrote the letter to Heraclius, he said, إِلَى هِرْقَلْ عَظِيمَ الرُّومِ. He said in his writing, which is mentioned in Sunan Abi Dawud, he said, to Heraclius, the great leader of Rome. He used the word Azim. What other entity do you know is called Al-Azim? Right? Now, if you didn't know that hadith, and somebody wrote a letter to the great president of the United States, I guess we'll say from like a few years ago. Yeah, I don't know how we could do that. But maybe a few years ago to that guy. And he had many mistakes, by the way. Don't jump on the we're Muslims and we're Democrats bandwagon. That's nonsense, okay? The guy did all kind of terrible things. It's great to see we're having a black president, but there's so many issues there. You can have eloquent speech, and that's a good. May God bless you. But we need to be honest and holistic in our approach to how we look at things and where we make our decisions from, and not go to the strings of the puppets that they're doing in politics. So, the Prophet ﷺ is respecting the figure that people were saying, he is our ruler, and amongst them he's seen as a great individual. So the Prophet ﷺ is respecting his place in his society amongst his people. I gave a sermon about the great Martin Luther King Jr. one time. And some brothers got very upset. How are you calling him great? And giving a khutbah about him, and he died as a non-Muslim. I'm not talking about what's going to happen to him after he is dead. We have a creed knowledge about how we preserve our souls, and we are comfortable with what we have. The whole point was what he stood for in his life, and where do we stand on that? And what kind of actions he did, and where are we in those actions? Right? So, this is definitely a place where we can grow learning from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So when the Prophet ﷺ sent Muslims to Ethiopia, he was saying, I've heard good news that this Christian guy, who's Christian? Christianity is not Islam. And when we saw the Christians come to the Prophet, when it came to creed, he clearly differed with them, and it was a very obvious, very strong statement that he did with them once they had their discussions. But still to respect what they have to offer as people and what their general character is, and build a bridge right there. You see what I'm saying? You have this attitude, interfaith is haram, politics is haram. Okay? No. The Prophet ﷺ was doing that stuff. Okay? He was working with people, finding common ground. In the politics of the Quraysh was Qabaliyah, the tribal system of Arabia. He used it as much as he possibly could to give comfort to the believers and safety and security in the system that he lived in. Similarly, whenever there was a way to gain benefit by working a bridge between the Christians of the area, he did it there. So the famous Hajjatul Wada', when the Prophet ﷺ was, giving his final farewell pilgrimage, he told them, "O humanity, Ya ayyuhan nas, your Lord is one and your Father is one. Adam is one human being, okay? And Adam and Turab, it's not mentioned here. Adam was from dirt. He's telling everybody to humble themselves. Why would he say an Adam and Turab? That you all came from Adam and Adam and Turab. Why would he say that? He's saying humble yourself. You're just dirt that became smart. Okay? You've been blessed with a soul and you're responsible for your thoughts and actions. Okay? So he said there's no superiority of an Arab over a non-Arab. You have to understand, the word ajami in Arabic, it is used loosely to mean a non-Arab speaker. But the word in the actual root and the linguistics of ajami means one that cannot properly express themselves. They had that was the way they looked at it. You guys have a faulty communication system, all of the people who are not Arab. That was how their language looked at it. He's saying, no, that doesn't mean anything. You have this language or that language, this color, that color. There is no superiority of a white over a black over a white, except by piety. And again, who knows who has piety? فَلَا تُزَكُّوا أَنفُسَكُمْ هُوَ أَعْلَمُ بِمَنِ اتَّقَى. Don't claim religiosity and piety for yourselves. God is the one who knows who has the actual piety in their heart. It's His business to make that judgment. So we should not judge anyone. We should say, you're not a good Muslim, or you're not. One time, a brother was telling this other brother, he was like, yeah, you're talking about knowledge, and what this hadith says, and what that ayah says, but you don't have any taqwa. And I was like, hold on, brother, why are you telling me he doesn't have taqwa? He was like, yeah, you should see how, and I was like, no, hold on. Something you saw him do, you don't know what's in his heart. And you don't know what he's doing when you're not around, right? So, this is the attitude. And by the way, mashallah, one time I was on Khuruj with the brothers in Jamaat, and one of the elder brothers, he said, listen, what we learned from our scholars is that the older person has more experience in life, and so when you meet them, you feel some sort of respect and reverence to them because they have more wisdom than you. The younger person has less sins than you. They're innocent. So you have some reverence and respect for them because they have less sins, you know your own sins. And the person who's on your level, unless you know them to be a terrible person, if you know them to be a Muslim like yourself or something like that, you should, knowing all your sins, hope for the best for them and know that you have your mistakes, and so that you see them as better than you. This is the humility and the proper attitude that we should have in our reality. Freedom of religion. Some people say, I heard in Islam there's no freedom of religion. This is absolutely false. The Quran is abundantly, overtly clear about that. People have the freedom of religion. قُلِ الْحَقُّ مِنْ رَبِّكُمْ فَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيَكْفُرْ. Say the truth from you. We did it every day on Thursdays, right? Fridays. Say the truth from your Lord. قُلِ الْحَقُّ, say the truth. مِنْ رَبِّكُمْ, from your Lord. Whoever wills, let them believe. Whoever wills, let them disbelieve. This is Surah Kahf, 1629. لا إكراها في الدين. There can be no, when you say, there's something called لا نافية للجنس. In Arabic, when you say la something something, you're making a huge declaration about the non-existence of it. You're not saying it shouldn't be done, or you better not do it. You're saying it should never happen, under any circumstances. That's what the meaning here is in Arabic. La ikraha fid din. There is no compulsion, no compelling people in religion. Now I'll be honest with you. The majority of our great scholars in history, their interpretation of this verse, without really solid proof from an authentic hadith, is that this is for non-Muslims. Meaning, a Muslim cannot compel a non-Muslim. Many of them saying that if someone's saying they're Muslim, then we can compel them to follow the religion they say. I don't agree with this. You cannot make someone religious. Now, if they've done a crime, and this is a Muslim state, there is a legal penal code, and they'll take care of that accordingly, right? You will not hear anywhere in the history of the Islamic Caliphate that someone was arrested and done something to them because they didn't have a beard or because some women's hijab isn't right. But you saw it from people claiming they're doing Sharia, right? And this is really just trying to control people, compel them in religion. And all it does is make people not like religion. If somebody says, you better do this because I said so, and they threaten you, does that make you feel like you've come to some deep epiphany and you want to follow this from the wisdom and deep embracing of truth that you have found? You cannot compel. Religion is something that must be understood and grasped on conviction. And I'm not saying this because I'm the American guy. Read the ayahs, we'll keep reading them. And I'll give you more of it if you'd like, because there's many more. We could actually make a whole entire hour program on this one point, okay? So, what he's saying here is, قَدْ تَبَيَّنَ الرُّشْدُ مِنَ الْغَيِّ. He's making the point very clear, that the right guidance is becoming clear through this revelation and through the active practice of this revelation from misguidance and error. So whoever would choose to take with the firm handhold of faith and proper understanding will have something that could never harm them. They will have the way to heaven. Whoever would reject the evil of Taghut. Taghut in Arabic, it's like all of the evil things. Like idols, evil desires, places where terrible things happen, ideas that cause corruption and evil lies and all that. This is Taghut. All of the bad things that create problems is Taghut, right? Whoever would reject that and try to stand against it and stick with the revelation, they're on that rope going straight back to their Creator. He said, وَلَوْ شَاءَ رَبُّكَ لَآمَنَ مَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا. If your Lord had willed, He will make everybody believe. He can do that. It's not a problem. عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٍ. But He did not do that. So it makes no sense for you to try to coerce them. Which means what? There's absolutely no basis for trying to coerce somebody into the religion, in our religion. And there's many, many other ayahs on this. لَسْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ بِمُسَيْطِرٍ. You are not to control them. مَا أَنْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ بِجَبَّارٍ. You were not sent down to compel people in the religion. We could go on and on and on. Whoever got this idea in their mind that Islam is teaching some forceful convert people, they're not knowing the religion. So, that's that. Did you guys want to go into the controversial stuff of hadiths and things like that that seem to contradict people? Let's do it. Bismillah. Ala barakatillah. With Allah's blessing. Okay. So there is a hadith that is found in a hadith that is authentic collection of narrated hadith that says, Man baddala dinahu faqtul. Right? Whoever traded away their religion, then have them killed. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, النفس بالنفس أو لا يحل النفس إلا بثلاث. And he mentioned that nobody should be killed except for 3 people. And he's talking about capital punishment. And he said that one who has killed someone, then their life can be taken. Or someone who has admitted or been proven to have committed adultery. Or someone who has left the religion. And then he said in many narrations, مُفَارِقْ لِلْجَمَاعَةِ. And has separated themselves from the jama'ah. This statement has a very clear implication. So what does that hadith mean? That hadith does not mean if someone disbelieved in Islam, then they should be killed. No scholar ever understood it that way, by the way. How would anybody know if you disbelieve in Islam? Say somebody who's living in Saudi Arabia, for example, right? Because that's the law they have there. And they don't believe in Islam. Who would know? How would somebody know what you believe? Okay? And say you told your friend or family or neighbor or something like that. Do you think most people would be like, I'm going to the police? Most people don't be like, man, what's wrong with you? You need to taqillah, go to the mosque, work on your faith, learn something. They'll come try to preach to you, right? Most Muslims try to preach at you, right? They're going to go. So guess what it really is about? Exactly what Abu Bakr dealt with. People who come out and open in a society that is a theocracy. It's the whole law of the land is built on faith. So you are ratifying as an adult by saying Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Once you've said that as an adult, then if we allow people based on whims to play around with that statement and the implications of legal matters and what that would mean for the society's social structure, if that becomes something we just be all loose and play around, then what will happen to the society? A large contingency of people with weak faith are just going to say, well, today I'm not a Muslim because I don't have to follow these rules. I'll do this and that and the other because I'm not Muslim. So I can do this stuff. Right? So, if you didn't believe in Islam, why would you want to stay in an Islamic state? Why would you want to do that? I wouldn't do that if they had some communist state where they were like, we don't want you being a believer. I'll pick up my stuff and leave. Right? The Quran and the Sunnah tell us to do this. Right? Go be where you're comfortable. So, the hadith was not understood that way. We know that because it is narrated by many of the tabi'een that they witnessed that Umar al-Khattab, radiallahu anhu, when people would say blasphemous things, he would bring them in and let them live with the scholars amongst the people. Istitaba abadiyah. It's narrated that he would say, we will bring them in, and yes, we are taking them away from their environment. We are forcefully removing them from that. But they will live in quarters, not as prisoners who are living in slop and eating. None of that. They're living just like they live. But they're spending the day with scholars. And all of the time, those people would finally see faith in action for real. And they would want to be Muslim. Sometimes it took them months. Now look at this. Here's what Islamic law says. As one of the hadith mentioned, that Imam Nawawi put in Al-Majmu' when he talked about this, he said there's something about istitaba and it's like 3 days. So he said that if somebody said, I'm not a Muslim and all of that, and I don't believe in this, and so forth, and then people heard it, and then the witnesses are there, and then they bring him into the court, and they're like, yeah, you know, we're in a theocracy here, so we've heard that you've announced that you're no longer Muslim. Is that true? You know all he has to say? You know I said that, but I've thought about it, astaghfirullah, atubu ilallah, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, guess what they'll do? You agree? You've solved it, right? At-ta'ib, what did the Prophet say? Kaman la dhanbala. The repentant person, that's why in the Quran it gave even someone who did all the terrible things that the very harsh punishments would come, like people who go in the streets and hijack and do all, if they're repenting before they get brought in. If they come in and say, you know, I'm repentant, I did those things, the law is much easier on them, right? Islam very much respects repentance. It would only be someone who's clearly trying to bring a treasonous turmoil in society, choosing to live in a land that they don't believe in the whole system. They don't believe in the whole system of law that exists there. And they're choosing to live there and create a problem, and then if that got them killed, it seems like they deserve it. I mean, it seems like it. Why would you do that? Why would you live somewhere? I mean, in my mind, I'd be stupid to go live in China and then go up in the street every day and be like, communism is stupid. We should not follow it. You know what would happen to me? Right? You wouldn't hear from me again. There's already tons of evidence of that happening, and that's when you hear from those people anymore. They're stupid. This is not a smart thing to do with your life. Go live somewhere else, man. The earth is big. There's places you can go, right? Now, that doesn't mean we're turning our backs on our Uyghur Muslim brothers and sisters, who, by the way, are actually about 10% of China. You're lied to in the sense, because I've met Saeed, is a good friend of mine, Sheikh Saeed from Legend Taib al-Islam in Kuwait. Mashallah, I witnessed this guy give shahadas every single day, and I came to find out through secret knowledge of the management that this guy has brought 6,000 people to Islam over a period of 10 years. This guy is an amazing guy. A lot of Chinese and Filipino workers and different people, they came from Korea and elsewhere. He would just go talk with them and everything. He spoke like 5 languages. Very humble, sweet guy. He said, man, there's like 100 million Muslims in northwestern China. Or whatever that, southwestern China. So they're being oppressed right now. They've been living there for many, many centuries. That's their land. We're saying that, you know, we should support their rights, but we do encourage the Muslim countries to welcome them in. Malaysia and India, Bangladesh, whoever else would welcome them in. If they would be Muslim and welcome them. But that's the problem. We don't have leadership. So that's that hadith and what it means. Yeah, everybody has the freedom to believe whatever they want to believe. You know, God is not telling anybody you should be forcing anyone to believe, or that somebody must believe something. I have a personal conviction that, you know, all of the scholars that I learned from, I just can't see eye to eye with them. I don't see the evidence. There is a belief. This is really going to get to you. You just got to be honest with yourself and read these ayahs and think for yourself. And because everything's an interpretation, by the way. Right? If a kid was raised in a Muslim family, the vast majority, if not all of the scholars that I know of, would just say they're Muslim because their parents are Muslim. For me, that is wrong. For me, they have to choose it at some point. When they become intellectual enough for themselves, they have to say, you know what, I'm Muslim because I know who the Prophet is, why he's a prophet, that he is a prophet, that the Quran is the word of God, and I'm sure about that, and I own it as a teenager. Like now I'm old enough to know I'm owning this, right? And we should encourage them to make that objective decision on their own. But how do we do? We're tribal. We're very nationalistic with our religiosity. You're Muslim because we said so. I've dealt with hundreds of youth groups. Why are y'all Muslim, mom and dad? Is there ikhlas in there? Is that like nifaq or something? Isn't it? It's something like some sort of, and then we wonder why they're not strong about religion. Because we're forcing them to be Muslim. That's what in essence is happening. So see, this American imam is trying to ruin our religion. No, I'm actually trying to bring back the value that the Sahaba started it with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I think that we should not be all scared of other people's beliefs. How does it look if you're like, don't go talk to those people, don't read that book? It's a matter of religion, not a matter of immorality and other things, right? Just knowledge about philosophy and religion. Why would you be like, don't read this, don't learn that, What does that make you look like? You're not confident in your religion. You're not so sure. You think maybe I'll go convert to something else just by learning something from them or being around them. Isn't that what it looks? Psychology, you got to learn it to properly communicate the religion to the people. I know that there's ample proof, so I raise my kids exactly as I'm telling you. You can get up, bring my son, he's out playing basketball. We've had all these discussions thoroughly, just so you know. So, because Islam is in itself, if it's understood, it's the nature. You have a natural inclination. But guess what will get between that natural inclination? Some sort of cultural way of learning it that is not genuine and authentic. It's just the way of the forefathers from such and such country. Because you see, that is not helping them to embrace. Concept of non-Muslim citizens in the Islamic State. I think that's going to come up later, so we'll get there, inshallah. Freedom of speech. وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ رَبِّ أَرِنِي كَيْفَ تُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى. Right? Abraham said, my Lord, show me how you resurrect the dead. Does that sound like some sort of blasphemous question? Mm-hmm. It does. And God said, أَوَلَمْ تُؤْمِنْ? Don't you believe? Now, of course, God knows he believes, but he's teaching us about the freedom of speech. You see what's going on here? If you went to some sheikhs in the Muslim world and asked a question like this, in some way, in the film, well, you get a very harsh response. Because people feel like, how dare you ask this question? I've come to know that it is very frowned upon in much of the Muslim world when a young person or an old person questions their parents or the scholars about the religion. Why do we believe that? Why should we do this? Show me that, prove that to me. Now, obviously, if someone does not have good manners and etiquette, that's their shortcoming. But if we are scholars and elders, shouldn't we respond with prophetic forbearance and compassion and easygoingness? Or should we get all angry and tell them, shut up, how dare you ask that question? Who do you think you are? What kind of ingrate are you to our society? No. You should be like, well, I can see why you'd ask that question, and we're really going to have to study this thing. Here's my answer. Or, you know what, I really don't know, and I think we need to talk to a scholar. Right? I think that's the way we should answer the question. Moses was like, وَلَمَّا جَاءَ مُوسَى لِمِيقَاتِنَا قَالَ رَبِّي أَرِنِي أَنظُرْ إِلَيْكَ. He said, my Lord, he's at the mountain, he's going to get the Torah and stuff. He said, I just want to look at you. Can I look at you? It seems pretty pushy to ask that. But he's a prophet. And we're learning from the best of mouths, from the greatest of people, that it's okay to ask deep, tough questions. That's what we're learning. That's why he's telling us this story. So we can learn that there's nothing wrong with asking questions. They ask the Prophet, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ. They ask you about this, they ask you about that, they ask you about the moon cycles, they ask you about the menstrual cycles, they ask you about alcohol and gambling and this. The Quran is filled with their asking you, and then what does God do? He answers the question. He doesn't say, how dare they ask questions. The blame that came about asking questions is genuine questions. It's whenever you're nitpicking and trying to mock. when you're nitpicking and mocking, like what about the cow and what color it and all that, when you're asking those type trivial, frivolous questions that really don't add value to the discussion, then you're doing something sinful. But whenever you are genuinely trying to understand something, ask all the questions in the world. I think what it is, because in the ummah right now, we're in a state where people don't understand the religion too well. They don't have evidences. They cannot show you the ayah or the hadith about why they're telling you to do what they do. So they don't want to be humble and say, you know what, I don't know why I'm telling you to do that. So that's why they get upset until you don't ask questions. So that's why we need to seek knowledge. There's a famous overarching principle of Islamic discourse. La darar wa la dirar. There can be no harming oneself or others. No harm can be done. That's prohibited. So whatever speech you're going to give that is harmful to people, that will cause harm, then it becomes prohibited. So one time, this lady asked me, she says, Imam, why did all those people, when they drew the pictures of the Prophet Muhammad and stuff like that, lose their mind and burn things and break down stuff and destroy things and kill people and all that stuff? Why do they do that? And I was like, because they don't understand Islam very well. And she said, well, they look like a bunch of religious Muslims doing it. And they're saying that Islam told them to do this. I said, well, have you ever heard of the Lord's Resistance Army? We got to have this one locked and loaded with these people. Who is the Lord's Resistance? How many of you heard of the Lord's Resistance? Raise your hand. You know, okay. The Lord's Resistance Army is this huge Christian army. Since the 1980s, they've been in Africa, murdering, killing, burning, pillaging, and their mission is to establish biblical law on the earth. The Christian ISIS. They've been there for a long time now. But the powers that be don't want you to know that. It's not a big story. Even though they've killed tens of thousands of people over the years. Right? So, are they right? KKK, that helps people. I know what that is. Okay. Weren't they saying that the religion says we should hate all the black people and the Jews? That's what they say. That's their religion. And they're saying that they have churches where the whole church is like them. The preachers like them. They go out and they hang black people and do these things and shoot up synagogues. They just did recently in Kansas. Did you hear about that? Recently they shot up a couple synagogues in Kansas. The Jews are trying to take down America. Right? That's their beliefs. They got it where from the Bible. Does that make it right? No. Right? So, freedom of speech is that you would not say something that you know is going to harm somebody else. So what? The sister, or the lady, she's my sister in humanity. So she asked me, what would you have done? I said, I'll tell you what I did do. I wrote op-ed in the newspaper. And then I I'm coming to talk to you right now. And I'm telling people about the beauty of who the Prophet Muhammad was. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Because you clearly don't know him if you're drawing pictures of him with bombs in his hat and with knives and with a bunch of strange looking women. Because that's not who he was. And I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt in that you have been told the wrong story and you think it's provocative to prove your freedom of speech to say these things. And so I would like you to know who they are, and the best way to do that, as the Quran told us, idfa' billati hiya ahsan. Respond to non-violent provocation with the better character, with better manners. Act in a way that's better than they're acting. That's what the Quran told us in 3-4 places. Nowhere does it say, flip out, yell and scream, burn stuff and blow things and kill people. Nowhere does it say that. That's not our religion. There is an opinion amongst people about what it means to disrespect the Prophet Muhammad. That is an opinion, and it has some very spurious bases, right? And it is rooted in a deep love for the Prophet ﷺ. In my humble assessment, and the scholars that I learned from that I respect greatly, is that the best way to love the Prophet ﷺ is to act like him. And he forgave so many people for so many terrible things. He gave so many people some amazing chances. That's who he was. He was merciful and compassionate. The Quran talks about argue with them in such a way. Argue with them when you discuss with them this way. With who? With non-Muslims who have blasphemous beliefs. They have terrible beliefs. Atheists, whoever else. Now, if you read the history of Dar al-Hikmah, the Bayt al-Hikmah, the House of Wisdom in Baghdad, and even if you read the life of Abu Hanifa from his own narrations, Abu Hanifa said, and when the atheist would come argue with me, Listen to that. Hold on. Let's take a look back. Was Abu Hanifa in a caliphate? Bani Umayyah, he was. The law of the land was what? Sharia. And who was he debating in public? An atheist. Right? Why wasn't that a problem? Like right now, if they said we're going to have a debate with an atheist and somebody in Afghanistan, what's going to happen? Somebody will shoot the atheist. Abu Hanifa was like, no, you beat him in the arena of knowledge. That's his problem. If you kill him, then he goes to hell. Why would you want that to happen to anyone? You would not, because the Quran said that the Prophet was deeply saddened and depressed that people might be going to hell. That's what the Quran said. That's his sunnah. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The rights of Islam long before the West. So, the biblical narrative had pictured that women are soulless, temptress, and seductresses. It's mentioned in the Old Testament of the Bible, all of it. That it is the cause of women why everybody's not in heaven right now. The nature of women. By nature. Eve represents all women here. All women are like her. And many Christian theologians, it is an Orthodox Jewish prayer they say every morning. Every Orthodox Jew, when he wakes up in the morning, he has a prayer, oh God, I thank you for not creating me a woman. I didn't make this up. I got this on their website. Chabad 101 or whatever it is. That's what they pray. The Quran was very adamant to make a big deal that men and women are equal spiritual beings. Their potential for greatness, piety, is equal. One could be better than the other depending on their inclinations. And they will have equal rewards to them. وَلَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنْثَى. Men and women are not the same. Whoever said that is ridiculous. Biology, psychology, they're not the same. Male and female are not the same. Whoever's trying to say this, it doesn't make any sense in an atheist discussion. An atheist talking with atheists should say, we all know that men and women are not the same, right? Should not be a religious debate. Okay? God created them different. Even there's a very famous Western literature called Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. It's all about that. They wrote that a long time ago. But we're in what we call post-modernity, where people are like, you can choose your own gender as a child now. Like a 4-year-old. Do you feel like you're a boy? No, mommy, I think I'm a girl. Well, this is real. And like they will get very mad when they see this on the video that I said that. It doesn't make any sense. Now, if somebody else grew up and they're having this big psychological thing they're grappling with as an adult, okay, and that is something they deal with and they talk with their family and their counselor and whoever else and talk to medical thing and whatever their rights are, that's none of my business and I'm not telling them what to do and how to think. But a kid is a kid, and in no school curriculum should be choosing your gender. This doesn't make any sense. It's some strange thing. But that's where we're at, because Revelation got canceled out. So spiritual equality is there, right? Owning property. Historically, women could not own property. Why do you think that the Christian women take their husband's name? Just like the slaves took his name. She became his property. Now one brother asked, he says, so that means haram in Islam? No, it's not haram in Islam. Because two things. Number one, the nasab is known by people. And that's something that we enunciate. Number two, in the American legal system, your birth certificate will always stay whatever your original born name is. If you change it, you can have a social security, a driver's license, but when you print out that birth certificate, when somebody dies, it will always come out from the birth certificate, will go to the death certificate. Same one, right? So because of that, if someone wanted to solve the problem, which happens a lot, okay? The school or someone is like, is that your kid? And that doesn't look good. Urfan, as a cultural thing, that can create problems. From a personal or logistical or legal, they're thinking that this Muslim couple are not married because the custom is like that, and they don't even know why. So this is where that becomes a problem. Islamic law would allow somebody to do that in order to save the headache. But if you want to stick to your guns and be like, we have freedom, and go to the courts and explain your religion, that's fine. Alhamdulillah, it's great. Inheriting. Women used to not inherit. The Quran made that very clear. Working, having a business, owning property, So I remember I got into a discussion with some brother a long time ago. He was like, see, the thing is, why in Afghanistan we have to stop the women from learning and stuff, because they don't need to be working and all that. They just need to stay at home. And I was like, who said that?
What are your children?
Yeah. So he said, well, we have men don't have jobs, man. And I was like, they need to get up off their lazy butts and get a job, man. And he was like, no, bro, this is a very Americanized way of thinking. I said, no. If the sister got educated, got a job, made some money, you're behind. You need to get your stuff straight. You need to be a man up, what we say. In the South, we say, man up. Get your stuff together. Own your property. As the Quran said it. This is why you have authority. بِمَا أَنفَقُوا مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ. What they did with their wealth. The Quran said all people should be seeking knowledge. That is the right. We didn't put that on. The freedom and the right to learn is an Islamic right for male and female. The Prophet ﷺ said, he said, طَلَبُ الْعِلْمِ فَرِيضَةً عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ. Seeking knowledge is an obligation upon all Muslims. Equally. So Malala was right the whole time. We ask God to preserve her from those powers that are trying to puppeteer her. Because they're working on it. Seems like she's holding her ground to a large degree. I watched her in an interview one time where she said, I'm a Muslim and I'm proud. I was like, MashaAllah, alhamdulillah. She's sticking with it, Voting. They asked the opinions of women when it came to legal things. They asked the opinion of Aisha when it came time who's going to be the leader. Right? Somebody said, it seemed like you have one small example. That's a big example. When Uthman was assassinated, a large contingency of the Sahaba felt like Aisha's opinion is superior to anyone else's in our community about who should be the leader. Is that pretty solid evidence for can a woman vote? Being a scholar of religion, obviously, we've had a whole history. If you have not got a chance, there's a beautiful work done by Sheikh Akram al-Nadwi, Hafidhullah, Muhaddithat fil Islam. He did a whole anthology, but he made a very simple book, Muhaddithat in the history of Islam. The women scholars of hadith, and there are so many. Here's an interesting thing. There have been in our history hundreds of narrators, and dozens of those are female narrators of hadith, right? Out of the female narrators that we know of that they've been recorded, so-and-so woman has said, so-and-so said, so-and-so said, the Prophet said, and all that, right? There was never a case in which any of those who gathered the story of morals of these women, that they said, she has a problem in her morality. She was known to lie, she was known to cheat, she was known to not. Any woman who ever said, I know of a hadith chain, here's my hadith. There was never one that they recorded, this one has a morality problem. But men, we got whole entire 4 or 5 volume books of all the weak men that we can't trust their opinion because of moral issues. So we need to be careful before we say stuff. We need women scholars again. I'll never forget when I was being interviewed in, mashallah, Sheikh Nahla in Boston. He was encouraging me to look into this job that looked like a big responsibility. And he totally threw me off guard. He said, Imam, we envision a center that has many imams, male and female. And I was like, Assalamu alaikum. I was like, is this a trick? And he was like, what do you mean it's a trick? I was like, I've never heard of that. What are you talking about, Sheikh? And this is a well-known scholar who teaches graduate Islamic law in Qatar at an Islamic university. And he said, I'm not saying she's going to lead the khutbah Jum'ah or the salah. I'm saying that she will be a reference, a leader, a respected scholar. She will give lectures on knowledge. She will advise people in council. She will represent the Muslims in the media and in the thing. Leaders, according to the Islamic system. So, that's a new thing. Alhamdulillah, we're starting to see some of that come out now. Yasmin Mujahid and some others, Maryam Ibrahimi and so forth. So that's there. The right to a fair trial. Islamic law from day one in Medina was saying everybody has the right to due process. Have you ever heard the term habeas corpus? That's the Magna Carta, which is many centuries after the Prophet, like 4 or 5 centuries after the Prophet. These things were inscribed in the Hadith and the Quran, the Prophet ﷺ taught them. Al-Bayyin ala al-Mudda'i. That you have, somebody says this person's done a crime, we need the evidence, we need the witnesses. We cannot just, because, he knows the authority, he knows the governor, he knows the prophet, he's Muslim, those are non-Muslims. That's how the attitude was in all the other empires. So no, you're innocent until proven guilty. It's aslu bara'atu dhimma. Our scholars said in books, as a principle of Islamic legal theory, long before the West ever made this phrase, innocent until proven guilty, it said, al-aslu bara'atu dhimma. The basic reality of all people is they are innocent. Meaning until there is evidence proven that you are guilty. That's our heritage, guys. Don't forget it. So the practicing of the non-believers, protected by Ahl al-Dhimma, people under the protection of the state who are non-Muslim, people who are citizens. When it says under, why do they say they're under the protection of the state? Because they do not have to, they're actually exempt from the military service. There is evidence, plenty of good, solid evidence that non-Muslims were allowed to fight when they wanted to. But as a general principle, it was an obligation for all men to respond when there was a call to a war back in the imperial days when the world was in a perpetual state of war and there were no borders or UN or sovereign nations. You never know when it was going to happen. So these people would just pay a tax, a flat tax. Only, who pays the tax? Only a person who has wealth. If they have less wealth than the one who owes zakat, then they don't owe that. If they're a kid, they don't owe that. It's not on behalf of so-and-so. It's someone who has the wealth. They pay the tax. And exempts them from military service. That's what that is. They have the right to practice it. You know, like, mashallah, I was listening to one of the scholars explain the whole Merry Christmas debate. For me, it just feels weird, you know. I just say like Happy Holidays or God bless you or Happy New Year or something like that. But Sheikh was saying, if somebody said Merry Christmas to someone and they're saying, you know what, you have the right to have your religious beliefs and you have the right to enjoy your religious holidays, that's a divine right that he's given you. In the Caliphate, people were celebrating Christmas in the Islamic Caliphate for centuries. And that was allowed. If they're not allowed to be happy on that day, shouldn't they have said, hey guys, there will be no Merry Christmas here, as Trump is saying. No Merry Christmas, don't even say it anymore. Right? No. It was full freedom to be as you are, and you have that right. Enjoy your religious thing, that's between you and God. Right? So they have their rights. Economic rights, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, the Muslims will not, because the Jews had a very strong economic thing in Medina. He could have said, now look, this is a Muslim land now, y'all better pay up a big tax from all this stuff y'all do in the bank. He said, no, you have full thing on you pay your own taxes in your religion as you see fit. We're just here all as equal citizens. And we said whenever the Islamic State became, then there was just a tax for exemption from military service. Slaves have the right in Islam to buy back freedom. And that's how many of them bought back their freedom. Al-Mukataba. فَكَاتِبُوهُمْ إِنْ عَلِمْتُمْ فِيهِمْ خَيْرًا. So give them the right to buy back their... And then if they're Muslim, then the zakat will pay for whatever they need. If they've earned some and they're short some, zakat will say, here, we'll pay for this for you. You're free. Free to go. The right to disobedience to the command of disobeying God. Quran is very clear. You do not have to obey somebody when they're saying disobey God. Now, if they're threatening your life, you should just go along with it. That's where the thing is. You have the non-Muslim groups. Have you heard this taqiyya? These anti-Islam, the Islamophobic crowd. They've got these phrases they've memorized. This phrase particularly goes to the Shia community, which are 12% of the Muslims. But they cast it on all Muslims. So taqiyya means that you hide your real beliefs to preserve and promote your beliefs. So you don't tell people when you know it's going to make them uneasy, or it's going to, if you have a plan to convince them or try to gain power over them. That's the Shia. For us, the whole thing is just in the Quran and the Sunnah. If someone's going to kill you, like, I will kill you if you do not renounce or believe in Islam. You'll be like, well, I'm a Christian then. Let's go to church. I've seen it. You can go cry and everything, speak in tongues. So, So what are you taking time? So I'm gonna give him a hard time. It says, that's for saving your life. People can set the government straight when clearly wrong. Now this one's gonna sound like controversial. Abu Bakr, when he became Khalifa to Rasulullah, he became the successor and political rule to the Prophet Muhammad, and he was chosen because he was known out of all the best people on earth. He was the clear, standout, most qualified, picked by popular consensus. He's the one. In his inaugural address, he said, "In ahsantu fattabi'un." If I do right, you must follow me. This is a system. We need a leader, we need a society. He says, we do. If he's doing what's right, he's following it. وَإِنْ أَسَأْتُ فَقَوِّمُونِ. This is very strong language. If I do wrong and I do bad, then literally قَوِّمُونِ means set me straight. That's what it literally means. Because you say, الرِّجَالُ what? قَوَّمُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ. Right? God has made men responsible over their house. They have to pay the bills, they have to give food and everything, and they have the right to say, here's the rules. Right? Here's how we're going to make the big decisions in this family. Here's the guidelines we want to run our family by. That's his business to make that decision. Now, if he's oppressor, then he's doing sin. But if he's the right leader, like Abu Bakr and the Prophet and all the others, he's doing his place right. But if he did wrong, similarly, someone should set him straight. Abu Bakr was saying, if I do wrong, then you have to set me straight. But the scholars, they said, many hadiths on this subject, that if someone is a leader, and this is assuming what we see right now in places like Syria and elsewhere. If you know, the high probability is if you do something in the most wise way, that the government's going to come and destroy you and kill your neighborhood and ruin your life and family's life, you need to preserve your life. This is not the priority. But amongst the Sahaba, they were all on a moral level of accountability that if Abu Bakr makes a decision, and it did happen when they challenged him. On more than one occasion, they challenged him. Omar challenged him a few times, and when Abu Bakr died, Omar said, now I'm the Khalifa up in here. This is the new rules. And they're like, yeah, but how did you? He said, well, I challenged him, and he had his evidence, and we didn't have a big movement that was a big deal. So now I have a right to say so, otherwise I was obeying him. I have no right to create turmoil. When he has his basis, he's not harming anybody. He just has a different interpretation about how to do things. Right? So I think that's... Oh yeah. So before we leave, what time is it? Yeah. So let's try to just do this real quick, inshallah. In my humble assessment, it doesn't sound humble to say that, I don't know what I'm saying that. The way I've come to see this religion is that the way we teach it is very mechanical and very rigid and as a set of rules and regulations. That's how we teach the religion. And that's wrong. Religion needs to be taught as something wise, divine, organic, versatile, vast, deep. This is how it needs to be understood. And so the scholars have identified 5 objectives of the law that they all agreed upon. We all must agree on these 5 objectives because they did. So they're saying the whole law of Islam came for one purpose: to promote individual and social welfare and to avert individual and social harm and corruption. That's the whole entire law was pointed for that. And these 5 top things here is what it is. Number 1, human life is sacred. All human life is sacred except for one case. Someone who is threatening someone else's life. Someone trying to kill you, you have a right to fight back. If you killed them, you're not a murderer. You have done just in the law. Okay? Someone invades your land, someone kills somebody, the law will come. Okay? So life is sacred. All people, no matter what their beliefs are. When people try to tell you, well, I heard that the polytheists and this and that, and I heard this ayah. No. Muslims ruled India for 7 centuries. If Islam said kill the polytheists, we would not have Hinduism to deal with all the nonsense they're doing over there. Modi and them. we would not have any of these problems. Because Islam would have destroyed all of them over 7 centuries. There's plenty of time to wipe out people. Look what Hitler did in, how long was it, 20, 30 years? Millions of Jews. If we were really out to just kill all the non-believers, there wouldn't be 40 million Christian Arabs that have always lived there, in the Arab world, and there would not be 1 billion Hindus, for sure. Right? Clearly, the scholars in the caliphate that ruled by Sharia did not understand this idea. Their life was sacred. Religion. Everybody has the freedom of religion. Islam is even preserving the religion of non-Muslims. Islam preserves their religion. It allows them to believe as they like. It's a freedom of choice. Islam is promoting monotheism. Islam is promoting the prophetic model sent to the final messenger, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We're promoting that religion. We're representing it. We're teaching it. We're explaining it. We're defending it. But we're not here to tell you, you must believe as we do or else or something like this. No. Freedom of religion is preserved. And that's the first ayah that came down about defending themselves was about this. It says, وَلَوْلَا دَفْعُ اللَّهِ النَّاسَ بَعْضُهُمْ بِبَعْضٍ لَهُدِّمَ الصَّوَامِعُ وَبِيعُ وَصَلَوَاتُ وَمَسَاجِدُ يُذْكَرُ فِيهَا اسْمُ اللَّهِ كَثِيرًا. When God legislated the right to fight back after Muslims had been through 13, 14 years of torture, humiliation, abuse, killing at the hands of these polytheists, He said, you have the right to fight back, and if it was not that God gives people means to check another people, then many synagogues, temples, and mosques where God's mentioned His name often is remembered. So it's saying everybody should have the right to practice their religion. Nobody should be oppressed as you have been for simply following their religious beliefs. Intellect, preserved and promoted. Intellect should be cultivated. Intellect should be grown. Religion is for intellectual people. Now that sounds strange because if you were to ask most intellectual people in the Muslim world, is most of the very religious people you know super intellectual? They will say no. Those are the illiterate folk. They will say like this. This is why we can see we have it wrong in large mass quantities. Okay, because this is simple basic stuff here. Okay? Islam saw the relationship between science and spirituality. Those are connected. God created everything. The more knowledge you gain of science, you should grow in faith. You should be spiritually enlightened over this. There should not be a big battle. The Christians and the Jews have this problem because the Bible has all kinds of things that clearly human beings have done to this scripture. And that's why it conflicts. We don't have these problems. We have amazing signs in our Quran that shows that God is the one who revealed it. Because there's scientific facts in them. Family. Islam is about preserving the family. We need a nucleus in society that is this unconditional love, this place we can all go back to and we feel comfort and care and concern. Going back to some of these other ones. Wallah, it's crazy. Somebody's doing something like they got into the girlfriend-boyfriend relationship and then the family's like, we disown you. They clearly have something wrong with them, right? They've lost their way. The one thing they need is somebody with religion to love them. That's what they need. Someone's doubting religion and doesn't follow. I met this young man in college last year. He said, Imam, I'm convinced in evolution. And I was like, okay, and do you believe in the Quran? He was like, well, I believe in the Quran generally, but my dad and mom said I'm a disbeliever and I'm not welcome in the house anymore. And I said, well, that's pretty crazy because if you are saying you believe in the Quran and you have some sort of interpretation as to why evolution is real, then you're a Muslim, according to the consensus of Muslim scholars, actually. Right? You have a ta'wil that could be fasid according to the majority, but now you're hearing many Muslim scholars that are going along with this thing. Right? If you study it, you'll be like, wow, I didn't think there was an argument for that to be made. But there is. People who love the Quran and believe in it have looked into all these different ayahs and hadith, put them together and said, see, common ancestor is the apes. I'm not convinced, but they're saying that, and they believe. That's their business. I'll say, I'm a simple guy. I'm not into this debate of evolution when it comes to that aspect. But if you're convinced on that, it's a big deal for you, and you're a believer in the Quran and the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, I'm not here to tell you what to believe. That's your business. You do not disown people from your family because they did something wrong. The family's there to bring support and comfort to people. That's why He created it that way. Whoever is attacking or throwing acid or killing other people, these people are all going to hell. Okay, I'm just telling you for sure. This is the disgrace to God and His Messenger, and the first ayah from Surah An-Nisa. So, family should be preserved and taken care of, nurtured and cared for. Wealth. Society's wealth should be preserved. People's rights to wealth, fairness, equality, social concern for how the wealth is. So, Abu Bakr, he said something pretty powerful in the same inaugural address. He said, القوي فيكم ضعيف عندي حتى أخذ حقه منه. He said, the strong, powerful, rich people among you I consider as weak until I take his right for the poor people. He said, والضعيف فيكم قوي عندي حتى أخذ حقه حتى أعطيه حقه. That the وكما قال أبو بكر. He said, the weak among you is strong in my eyes. Meaning, I feel as a leader, there should not be a problem of poverty. If I'm the right leader, we should not have poverty. We should find a way for everybody to make a decent living. Abu Bakr was long before Bernie Sanders. Okay? Get in where you fit in. And so, he was saying, if we're monopolizing wealth and it's getting stacked up in one way, we're going to balance it out. It doesn't mean you don't have the freedom to build your corporation, and so there is a capitalist element to having the freedom to make your money and do whatever you do. But you cannot monopolize and concentrate and build a system of economic interest only for a small group. And everybody else is kicked out of that by the way it's built. That system will get changed by an Islamic law. No. We need to have a fair, even playing ground for everyone in this economic system. That's why interest is a problem. Interest was prohibited because now Muslims have become the majority, they have political authority, they have the means to fix the economy. Well, interest is saying, well, we're really rich. So if you're rich, I'll give you a very good deal and you can buy it right now and I'll give it to you. If you're poor, I'm going to make you pay so much more money than the rich people pay over a long period of time. And if you want to pay longer, I'll make you pay longer. You'll end up, spending $1 million for a donkey. But you really need that donkey, so you're willing to pay it, right? It's just like what we got right now. Somebody in certain circumstances, Islam will say no. That's why it says, وَالْغَارِمِينَ عَلَيْهَا. In the Quran, those who are struggling with debt, the zakat, it pays for it. Wallahi, we can fix the whole problem of the economy in the Muslim world if just the Khalij followed Islam. If these countries in the Gulf were really following the Islamic economic advice wholesomely, wholeheartedly, the whole economic system of the Muslim world will be solved. And I'm not just talking about paying zakat. Some people will say that, and that's a little bit corny. It's the whole system of how Islamic economics works. What do we do with our wealth? Why would we prioritize this wealth or that? What is a waqf? What is the NGO concept came from us? It's our ummah that brought this whole concept into existence. But we don't even know. We got billions of dollars of oil wealth in Walt Disney and Fox. Okay, so justice, dignity, we talked about those things. The different levels of priorities is that when one of these is being threatened, Islam will make very drastic measures to protect it. That's where this fatwa comes from, where scholars say, okay, you're living in a non-Muslim environment. You have no control over their economy, just like the Muslims did for 13 years in Mecca, and even in Medina, they still didn't have great authority. So God did not reveal the prohibition of interest for those reasons. So now you live in this society, and here's what's going to happen. The directive of prohibiting interest was to fix the economy, to even out wealth, and give lower income people an easier life. That's what the whole prohibition was about. That's its purpose. So now you're looking at yourself, I don't have a hard time to buy anything, so I'll just rent. So you rent a house and you spend all this money renting a house your whole life. That money goes away. Then you die. People don't inherit anything because you don't own anything. Or, we'll give you this fatwa, you, for your family's safety, security, and for future inheritance and stability, which is in your best interest financially, we're going to relax the law on this interest issue so that you can buy a home. Right? That's why they say it. Similarly, many scholars are saying, if you exhaust all your means, the condition is two. Number one, you exhausted all your means to find a straight up loan from a Muslim, wealthy Muslim. Right? If you can find that, you have to do that, you're obligated. If you can't, then you have to use whatever means are there. Right? And we're not going to go into the big debate about, is there really a difference between guidance and this and that and the other? We'll just leave that for you to study on your own. Okay? But what we'll say is, they've made that fatwa for the system that has, this is the diminishing value. They're calling it interest in this one. They're saying profit in that one, and so forth. You're a student. You graduate high school, you'd like to go to college. You cannot find any Muslim to loan you the means to go to college, and you've looked into all the grants that exist, and you can find no grant. So he said, a Muslim should be an educated person. They should give the best contribution to society. This, by the way, is not my fatwa. This is Amjad and great scholars, scholarly councils of groups of scholars who discussed this thoroughly, looked into all of the issues and the potential solutions, and they said if this person has no other way but to take that loan, then they can take it. But they have to pay it back as soon as possible and cannot prioritize any other wealth. They're saying that because wealth needs to be preserved and intellect needs to be preserved in the ummah. They're stretching the law a little bit because the objectives of the law are being threatened. So, inshallah, if there's any questions, no controversy. Yes, brother.
So you said in Islamic society, the punishment for a murder is to take the life of him. So what if he murdered for self-defense? That's the first question. The other question is, what is the opinion of you on the promotion of democracy in Islamic society? When you were talking about the freedom of speech and the freedom of religion.
Good. The first one, it's well established and Islamic law is very crystal clear. Anytime anybody's trying to kill you, you have a right to defend yourself because your life is being endangered. And so whatever you have to do, the law is going to be stretched for you to kill that person if need be. Now, the hadiths talk about reasonable force. By the way, this thing that I'm telling you, the modern American law is so proud of these things they're talking about. But it was, again, these exact phrases and statements were found in books of Islamic law long before America was a dream in British people's eyes for colonial greatness. Okay? I'm talking about long before 1500s, 1600s, all that, it was in there. Where they said, you must use reasonable force. If somebody comes in here as a big dude and he's like, I'm going to kill every one of you, and he has his fists, to shoot him in the head with a gun is a crime. You're a murderer. But if the sister picked up her chair and was like, get away from me, and accidentally poked him in his eye and killed him, she's alright. He shouldn't have not come in here. If the guy comes in with a bat, and I pick up the chair and start swinging at him, I'm okay. But to pick up the chair when there's 10, 15, 20 brothers here, why not? Why don't you just all subdue him, right? Now if he comes in with a gun, the only way to kill somebody with a gun is a better person with a gun in our age. A good guy with a gun kills a bad guy. They're just trying to make money off selling guns. Let's arm the kids now. Because if the kids all have guns, then for sure they'll just all just shoot them. It'll be a big shootout. We'll make a lot of money. And then they'll all die. So then the people who are next to that school, then they need guns. If you live next to a school, you need guns now. Because you live next to a school. That's a reason to buy guns. Because schools, a lot of people get shot there, right? You see what I'm saying?
And then one armed teacher was mad.
I mean, I'm just taking it. Like one teacher got mad one day and she shoots all the kids because she's got a gun. Now we have to arm the kids so they protect themselves.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. You gotta see how the train works. It's a domino effect. And then we just sell a bunch of guns. Everybody has a gun. Of course. This is God. By the way, I can tell you that our evangelical friends are making a move against this. And they're changing their way. I'm telling you, the evangelical community is fed up with all this stuff. Immigrants, guns, they're like, Jesus Christ was a peaceful guy. Whatever this stuff, some crazy nationalist usage of Christianity in some weird way. The brother had a question. Second question was, What is my opinion in democracy? Yeah, so this idea that democracy is evil because the word is democracy is not the case. The scholars said, "Al-ibra laysat bil-asma' innama hiya bil-musammayat." The point of reference that you would use in judging something is not what you call it, it's what it is. So if we're saying we're promoting democracy in a Muslim society that's majority Muslim, and what we mean by that is we can just make up laws that are completely contradicting the religion, then that's kufr. That's disbelief. Whoever's doing that is promoting disbelief. But if what we're saying is, which is, in my humble assessment, the best situation for all the Muslim countries, is that we need to go back to a qualification-based system, and people need to be given positions because they have qualifications, and they know what they're doing, and they're decent people. They don't need to be some Ayatollah, Sheikh in Islam or something like that. But they're just somebody who's a good practicing Muslim with, in that category, the political science or economy or whatever it is in the government they're doing. They know what they're talking about. They understand diplomatic relations. They understand sociological and concerns of the society. They know their society. They're from their society. Like Hamid Karzai. I don't know where they got this guy from. You know, they live there. That's their people. They know what they're doing. Then we know, now, does everything in Islamic law, does everything that happens have a Islamic law position that needs all these scholars in the masajid or the university? No. You can let people make it. But there are certain teachings that need to, the fundamentals, the objectives and intents and purposes of the law, that should be the governing and guiding. And we should never go against a clear scripture in the Quran. Right? So, yeah, so that's perfectly okay.
Contest between the two people and having people vote for them.
For sure. I don't know why anybody would say there's a problem with that.
Yeah, because like if you see Saudi Arabia, they just keep electing the people from within the family. They just keep passing.
This is not election. This is a kingdom, and they have been putting scholars in jail and torturing them, whoever challenged it, and they're rightly challenging it. You know? So, this is not Islam. Whoever is saying they're following Sharia over there is a joke. They are not following Sharia in many, many ways. Probably more ways than they are. Just because they're doing some harsh penalties, which are, in many cases, those are wrong application. And I'm not saying this because I'm saying this. I'm saying this because I sat with many scholars who are not Saudi Arabian, and they're like, man, this is a disgrace. You know? Killing all these people, and they don't even understand the religion. Right? All the laws came, the strict code of social enforcement came after people were well trained in the bedrock of the prophetic legacy. People had been loving and knowing and living the Prophet, truly conviction-based embracing of Islam, and they went through many years of that. Now the law is justly applied upon them because they are very careful in their faith and their spirituality and their understanding for social concern and justice and welfare. That was all a big concern. Muslims are very ignorant nowadays. We've been in the dark ages for like 300 years. 400 years. We need a long period of just learning and growing and rightful leadership and building, and then we can establish some laws and be a little bit, strict at that point. But we're not ready for any of all that stuff. That's why it looks all bad, because it's done in the wrong way with the wrong priority system. So, yeah.
Where do you draw a fine line between preservation of wealth and compounding your wealth to pass it on to as an inheritance for the next generation? As we live in a capitalist society, clearly, defeated for a foreseeable future of maybe like centuries. So where do you draw a fine line? Is there any fine line between compounding wealth and preservation of your wealth?
No, he has a good point, because there are some very strong spiritual directives in the hadith about al-kafaf, to be sufficing. That the Prophet ﷺ says, وَأَن تَبْذُلِ الْفَضْلَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ. To spend out of the extra wealth that you have is better for you. And we saw this amongst the Sahaba. Now, that being said, we have plenty of evidences in Uthman bin Affan and Abdurrahman bin Auf. We see that there were very wealthy Sahaba from the best among them. And they died with large amounts of inheritance. So we'd say that there is a spiritual directive to put your wealth in beneficial needs and to be concerned about the needs of your family going on, but to just stack up wealth for the sake of stacking up wealth is not an Islamic concerned. And the fiqh and the spirituality, and this is where a lot of people get confused. There are some things that are spiritual, and there are some things that are legal. So spiritual is like, what is wealth, and I'm going to die, and what is my purpose, and what's my value? Those type of things are spiritual thoughts, right? And the Prophet and his companions, you see, they would emphasize sometimes things in a spiritual way, but the law is allowing for people, based upon circumstances, to make decisions. So, for me, I don't know why I've actually met a brother one time, told me, I'm trying to save $1 million. And I was like, what are you going to do with it? He was like, well then, I will inherit a lot and my family will all become, alhamdulillah, wealthy. And all that. But then what they do for that wealth? Like, they'll be spoiled at that point, right? Because they haven't worked for their wealth. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said that the best thing you can do is work with your own hands for your money, right? So, I think that's where it becomes a problem, when it's just for the sake of... And capitalism is brainwashing us. You need to save all this money, right? And negating the truth that in very strange ways money will come to you. I know some people say it sounds hokey, but it's true that when you spend on very noble causes, the wealth will come in a very strange way. I've seen it my whole life. Right? Yeah, so you should always be engaged in that. That is a definitive trait of the people of heaven who will grasp this Quran and live by it, is that they spend out of the wealth that was provided for them. Any other question? Jazakumullahu khairan, subhanakallah bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Please forgive me, sometimes I speak passionately and I don't mean to be offensive. If I say anything offensive, that was my own shortcoming and sinful behavior.